Sophie clutched her intern badge tighter as the elevator doors slid open. Whispers followed her every step. It was her first week, and already she'd spilled coffee on the marketing lead and accidentally sent a blank report to HR. Late again, Vanessa, her sleek, high-heeled supervisor, hissed under her breath. Sophie mouthed an apology and squeezed into the corner of the elevator with 9 sharply dressed employees. As it began descending, a sudden thud echoed from the lobby below. The doors parted on the ground floor, and there sprawled awkwardly on the marble floor was an old man in a janitor's jumpsuit, groaning. Everyone hesitated. Vanessa scoffed. What is he even doing here? Security! The others snickered. No one moved. Except Sophie. She stepped out, heels clicking across the slick floor, knelt beside the old man and asked gently, "Are you okay, sir?" He clutched his chest but nodded faintly, just dizzy. Before Sophie could help him up, Vanessa barked, "Sophie, get away from him! You'll catch something!" Sophie ignored her. Something didn't feel right. The man's shoes were expensive, his hands too smooth for a janitor. Sophie helped the old man sit up as whispers grew louder behind her. "He's faking it," one intern muttered. "Probably drunk," another laughed, snapping a photo. Vanessa crossed her arms, loud enough for the lobby to hear. "Some people will do anything for attention. Sophie, this isn't your job." Security finally arrived, 2 guards dragging their feet with amused expressions. "You again, old man?" one of them said. "Didn't we warn you about loitering here?" Sophie's brows furrowed. Something was off. Why was everyone so eager to dismiss him? The old man's voice was low but firm. "I don't need a doctor. I just need a moment." Sophie helped him to the bench by the window. He looked her straight in the eye, and for a second, something flickered. Then he blinked, and it was gone. Back inside the elevator, the staff chuckled and pointed at her. "She wants a medal for helping a nobody." She should have filmed it, maybe gone viral. Heart pounding. Sophie stood up, turned around, and walked back toward them with her chin high. But little did they know that the old man watched every single one of them. By lunchtime, the video had already made it to the staff group chat. Sophie kneeling beside the old man. Zoomed. Replayed. Mocked. Vanessa confronted her at the break room door. "You just had to play hero," she snapped, blocking Sophie's path. "Helping a random vagrant in the lobby? Do you realize what kind of liability that is?" "He wasn't a vagrant," Sophie said quietly. "He was sick." Vanessa leaned in. "He's a joke. He's been hanging around here for days. Security's warned him before." "But why is no one reporting him properly?" Sophie asked. Vanessa smiled coldly. "Because some of us know who matters here." Before Sophie could reply, HR called. 15 minutes later, she sat across from Miss Lennox, the company's head of conduct. "We've had reports about your behavior this morning." "My behavior?" Sophie blinked. "I helped someone." "You left your post, created a disruption, disobeyed a supervisor." Sophie's jaw tightened. "So I should have just ignored someone collapsed on the floor?" Miss Lennox sighed. "Sophie, this company values order, not drama." Unbeknownst to them, a tiny red light blinked above the office door, a discreet surveillance cam. And the man everyone thought was just a janitor? He was reviewing the footage himself. The elevator chimed on floor 47, the executive level, off limits to interns. Inside, the same old man shuffled forward, escorted silently by a suited woman with an earpiece. No one questioned them. He passed polished desks, oblivious stares, and glass conference rooms filled with people who didn't recognize him. But the CEO's assistant did. Her face drained of color. "Mr. Grant, I didn't know you were—" He raised a hand calmly. "Just observing." She stood. "Should I alert Mr. Paxton?" "No," he said. "I won't be disturbing the impersonator in my office." Meanwhile, downstairs, Sophie returned to her cubicle, humiliated. Her inbox was flooded with sarcastic memes and GIFs. But buried between spam and noise was an anonymous message. "You did the right thing. Don't let them break you. G." She stared at the screen. Who was G? Across the building, Mr. Grant entered a private archive room. Inside, He pulled a dusty folder from a locked drawer. Employee evaluations. Floor 12 intern rotation. He tapped Sophie's file. Compassion, he whispered. Integrity. Disobedient to corruption. He smiled. One click, and her record was flagged for review under an alias no one would dare question. Because this janitor was cleaning house. By Friday, whispers had shifted. Vanessa noticed HR had gone quiet on Sophie's violation. No warnings, no paperwork, nothing. She stormed into Miss Lennox's office. Why hasn't the intern been reprimanded? Miss Lennox barely looked up. It's been handled. Clearly not. She's walking around like she's untouchable. Miss Lennox tapped her pen once, then calmly said, Some interns come with higher recommendations than others. Vanessa blinked. From who? But the conversation was over. Downstairs, Sophie opened her locker to find a small white envelope taped inside. No name, just her own handwriting from the HR form she'd filled out on day one. Inside was a silver badge, an intern-level clearance pass for executive floor access. Her breath caught. This wasn't standard. She turned the card over. A post-it note was stuck to the back. It's time they see you. Meanwhile, on the 47th floor, Mr. Grant sat at the boardroom table as silent staff filtered in. None of them recognized him, until he placed a single document in front of the acting CEO. It was his original deed of ownership. Signed, sealed, dated. I'm activating my rights, he said. Everyone fell silent. The janitor had just taken back his company. Sophie's heart pounded as the elevator rose past the 30th floor. She clutched the silver badge she'd received in silence. Why her? When the doors opened on floor 47, everything changed. The hallway was dead quiet, covered in plush carpet and lined with abstract art. No interns ever came up here. Yet, not a single security guard stopped her. In fact, one even nodded her through. Inside the executive break room, a voice called gently, You must be Sophie. She turned. There he was, the old man. He was no longer in a jumpsuit. He wore a tailored gray suit, eyes sharp and clear, not frail, not confused. In fact, he looked powerful. You remember me? She asked. He smiled. You were the only one who did something when I fell. That's not easy in a building full of people pretending not to see. Her hands trembled. Who are you? Let's just say, he replied. I built the company everyone else is trying to run into the ground. Before she could respond, an announcement echoed overhead. All department heads to the boardroom. Immediately. Mr. Grant stood. Come with me. Sophie hesitated. I think it's time you saw how power really works. Sophie trailed behind Mr. Grant into the glass-walled boardroom. Executives lined the table, confused. Some glanced at her, others ignored her completely. At the head of the table sat Caleb Paxton, the interim CEO, young, smug, and already fidgeting with his Rolex. What's the meaning of this? Caleb asked, eyes narrowing at the old man. Who let you in here? Mr. Grant didn't flinch. Instead, he placed a worn leather folder on the table and opened it. Inside, founding documents, original shares, and signatures in ink. Every legal paper with his name on it. Grant Weston, he said calmly, majority shareholder, founding CEO, and sole controlling partner. Gasps. Caleb paled. You're lying. Mr. Grant Weston is dead? Grant finished. Rumors I let spread while watching how this company devoured its soul. Everybody went silent. Sophie stood frozen at the corner, unsure if she should leave or clap. Mr. Grant turned to her. This is Sophie. She's one of the only people in this building with a functioning moral compass. Then he looked around the room. Effective immediately. There will be changes. Starting with leadership. Caleb stood up. You can't just come back and... I can, Grant said coldly. And I just did. By noon, the news had leaked. Grant Weston returns. The Phantom founder reclaims control. Social media exploded. Employees whispered in hallways. Executives scrambled. Caleb Paxton locked himself in his office and refused to speak to press. Vanessa, still smug from her earlier HR complaint about Sophie, received an urgent summons. When she entered Mr. Grant's temporary office, her face went pale. "You," she breathed. "You treated a kind intern like dirt," Grant said. "You laughed while I was on the floor." Vanessa straightened. "I didn't know who you were." "That's the point," he said, voice calm but sharp. "If I had truly been a janitor, I'd still deserve better." She tried to explain, but he held up a hand. "You're suspended pending review. Security will escort you out." Gasps followed her exit like an invisible parade. Meanwhile, Sophie sat quietly in a side office, unsure what her role was in any of this. Until a knock came. Mr. Grant entered and placed a letter on the desk. "Starting Monday, you're no longer an intern," he said. "You'll be my assistant, direct access, full clearance." Her mouth parted. "Why me?" He smiled. "Because when I was invisible, you saw me." And in that moment, Sophie knew everything had changed. Sophie's first day as Mr. Grant's assistant felt surreal. Gone were the mocking glances and whispered jokes. Now, doors opened when she walked by. Executives greeted her with forced smiles. But Sophie hadn't changed. They had. She watched Mr. Grant closely that week. He moved quietly, intentionally. He didn't yell. He didn't gloat. He simply fixed. He rehired laid-off workers, reinstated scholarship programs, and cut executive bonuses, all with quiet precision. But what struck Sophie most was the file room. Late one evening, she peeked inside. Mr. Grant was sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by dusty personnel files. "What are you doing?" she asked gently. "Reading stories," he murmured, "of people who built this company and were forgotten." He slid one file toward her. It was her father's. He had once worked here decades ago in maintenance, a loyal employee, quiet and honest. Tears stung her eyes. "You remembered him?" Grant looked at her kindly. "I remember everyone who mattered." The next morning, Sophie walked into work, no longer wondering why she belonged. She knew, because she was the kind of person Mr. Grant believed in, the kind who remembered humanity even in a room full of power. 2 weeks later, Mr. Grant called a company-wide town hall. Over 400 employees filled the atrium, phones out, live stream on. He stood at the front, no teleprompter, just a microphone and a calm, steady voice. "I built this company with 2 friends and a dream," he began. "Then I watched it become unrecognizable, a place where kindness was weakness and titles became thrones." He looked directly at Sophie, standing to the side. "Until someone reminded me what leadership really island." He paused. "I'm stepping down permanently, but not before rewriting what we stand for." The crowd gasped. Murmurs rippled through the room. "Sophie Allen will take over as Director of Culture and Ethics, effective immediately." Her eyes widened. The room turned to her. Whispers exploded. "She's just an intern." "She was," Mr. Grant said. "Now, she's the reason this company has a soul again." Thunderous applause broke out. Sophie stepped forward, trembling, stunned. Later that night, in her small apartment, she framed her old intern badge. Not to remember how she started, but to remind herself who she chose to be when no one was watching. Because in the end, titles fade. But integrity? That's a legacy worth leaving. The moral lesson of this story is that true character is revealed when no one is watching, and kindness toward the unseen is what truly defines greatness.